he was sitting off on the side, I don't know, at the convention or something, and he was crying. And he was like, I'm worthless, I don't have anything to offer. And then they're like, you've got to get it together and get up there and give your speech. And then he gets up and just like, you know, does this power thing, presentation. But that he was having a moment, for some reason, of being in touch with his inner child and innocence. And loyalty is very important. You know, you better be on their team, 100%. And if you're not, you'll get kicked off pretty fast. Hates injustice, again I said not all eights do, but most do. Has an inner sense of justice, fights for the underdog. Now, see that can be open to interpretation. Who's the underdog? The underdog as they define the underdog. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, children or immigrants or whoever. You know, it's like, it's no, who they think the underdog is. And that could be someone that worked for them, that they're now going to, you know, help. That person is the underdog. Creates intimacy through sex, fighting, confrontation, and conflict. You know, what's the thing about, like, all attention is good. It's like the child doesn't care. Like, if it's being nice, it's getting attention. If it's acting up, it's still getting attention. So the whole thing there is attention, and that's where your power and energy comes from. Values directness in others, has very little tolerance for waffling. Confrontation used to check out a situation, fears being controlled. Feels, expresses anger easily. Can blast others. Being softer, being loving is a challenge. Highly independent, prone to impulsivity, acts first, thinks later, and then tries to mop up the damage. Self-forgetting by blaming others. So of course, great strategy, you know. If something goes wrong, you know, you're not the one who was the problem. You're not going to take the blame. You have someone already in mind to take the blame. And so it can be very aggressive or attacking. Okay. So, and we do have an 8 with a 7 wing among us this morning, who is a wonderful person. I was floored when Curtis told me he was an 8. But again, it's a very good example of someone, I think, we talked about this, about being in a profession, being in a job, being in a system, where you have to, you know, you can't be an 8 if you're on the pecking order here and you have bosses. Be an 8 and you'll find yourself out the door. You know, you can't be that type of energy. So you have to bring it in a bit, and you have to move to the point of integration, and you have to work with others. So if you're not the boss, it's hard being an 8, right? Well, you were eventually, but you started out not the boss. Right. So you learn to modify your type, and so that's an important thing. So now that he's retired, he's going to become this tyrant. I mean, just going to show up. No. So, the description for the 8 with a 7 wing is a challenger and enthusiast. So you can see there's a lot of the 7 energy, because the 7 is the enthusiasm for life, and the 8 has that, and they are next to each other, 7 and 8. Okay, so now you have an 8 who's already energized, picking up the enthusiasm of the 7. So it's a very power position. Forceful, engaging personality, opinionated, can be motivating. So again, you know, if an 8 uses these gifts, they can be great speakers and motivational speakers and really like get people worked up. And I mean, again, if you look at Bernie Sanders, he has a great gift for energizing the crowd, okay? Will take big risks to implement their vision. Impulsive tendencies. Sociable, talkative, interactive, but not to gain others' approval. Confident and independent thinker, self-disciplined and self-directed. Competitive towards personal ends, may have an addictive personality. We can all have addictive personalities, so we just, we're not saying that just about the 8s. All right, so then we look at the 8 with the 9 wing, and the 9 is the peacemaker. So this is going to be a different flavor than the enthusiast. Exert leadership in a steady and grounded way to achieve control. Is thoughtful, methodical in implementation of personal vision. Protective of the inner circle. May dominate in a cool, collected way. Less aggressive than an 8 with a 7 wing, more gentle, caring, underneath, strong exterior. More introverted than the 8 with a 7 wing. Likes a quiet, reserved, steady lifestyle. So you're already getting a feel here again for the spectrum. If you had an out-of-control 8, it would be like dealing with a 2-year-old. Just demanding and, yelling and screaming and, argh. Or, you have the 7 wing with more of enthusiasm, and then you have an 8 with the 9 wing, which is more gentle, more reserved, and steady. So again, just bear in mind that we have a spectrum. And then, in addition to that, we have the subtypes, which will also give us a very different flavor for the 8. Let's see. Okay, and then, as always, we have the lines. Lines represent the 2 numbers that you're also familiar with because you either go to them for integration, as I say, when your life is really flowing and you're feeling expansive, or you go to a place of disintegration where you feel it's all coming down on you and you start contracting. So, the heart point, as this app says, is the point of integration. For the 8, that's the 2. And we know that the 2 is the helper. It's the one who wants to be of service. Of course, it is, there's an ulterior motive, but nevertheless, it's more about service and helping. So when an 8 goes to 2, they become softer and more giving, becomes passionate about and attentive to others and more caring, learns to value others' beliefs and see others as equals, exposes tenderness, vulnerability, emotionally expressive. The inner child feels safe and finally gets to come out and play, because this is a much softer, this is where you evolve, if you still, for each one of us, for each of the numbers, there is an experience that had a quality to it that you did not like. And so, again, you develop a strategy to never have that experience again. I do not want to feel this way. That's the whole game plan here. And so for an 8 to go to the 2 is that more soft, safe place. And that's then where that healing can take place for the inner child that is so defended. So exposes the tenderness, the vulnerability, emotionally expressive. The downside of them going to, that actually splashed all the way over here. The downside is giving to hold power over instead of power with. So, even though this is the heart point or the point of integration, you can still pick up some of the negative side of that point. So, as you know, the 2 gives in order to get, ultimately. So if the 8 goes into that sort of an energy and mode, then it is really about controlling, even though they're serving, and it's, again, to get power for themselves. Just take a little drink here. So then the stress point or the point of disintegration is the 5. And the 5 energy is that of the investigator, the gathering of knowledge and continual gathering. It's never satisfactory, and then the hoarding of it. So when the 8 goes to 5, they withdraw, they can clam up, and they isolate. Gets more emotionally distant and withdrawn, less expressive, is secretive, loses grounded, earthy sense, detaches from vitality. So that whole expansive, expressive, enthusiastic energy all sort of like crashes down and contracts. Retreats to strategize, to reassess, which is, what the 5 does. They're always strategizing and reassessing. May become bitter and jaded. So you can imagine if you're dealing with someone who has this tendency to be pretty hard to be around, if they're bitter and jaded, that would not be pretty.
Howard Hughes in his late life.
I was just going to say Howard Hughes was popping into my head. Some of the people who become reclusive.
I didn't hear what you said, Howard.
Howard Hughes, yeah. Self-care falls by the wayside, energy invested in projects. The upside, so then even though they're going to the point of disintegration with the 5, they find clarity in taking an informed, measured view. So in a sense, it slows them down, which is not their normal strategy. They're going 100% tilt all the time. So the 5 is like stepping back and being a little more introspective about things. So for growth, and here's the mantra if you want to sort of use it. If you realized that the world had innocent motives, what would your life be like? So they're undoing the mental construct that they have in their heads that the world is not an innocent place, it's not a safe place. And so that gets to the core of that inner child and their desire for safety. So the issues for the 8s. How to keep your power and maintain the pleasure of following instinct. How to impact the world yet allow vulnerability and weakness. Deal with the lust for stimulation and acquisition. Growth path. Practice being vulnerable to self and others. Therapy is valuable. Now, would an 8 think therapy is a good idea? And yet, my friend is a therapist, or at least a medical social worker. And so, again, those who evolve and integrate, learn the value of these things. And then, of course, they become their best champions when they discover, what works. Learn to manage and control anger, not be destructive with it. Develop softness, become more introspective and self-aware. Let in affection, affection or care. Release survival of the fittest mindset. So yeah, there's a very Darwinian sort of survival of the fittest thinking with the 8. It's like, I'm going to be king of the hill. When everybody else is laid waste, I'll still be top dog. Yeah. Reduce intensity and impulsiveness. Take space before reacting. Cultivate an appreciation of differences and value opposites. So again, in meetings or in team situations, the 1 is going to be more a pile driver of what they want than necessarily being open to feedback or what other people have to offer. So again, for them, it's about finding the balance of having an opinion, but also listening to others. Show others your insecurities. Expand what it means to be strong. What's your definition of strong? Well, you have the bamboo that can bend in the wind. You know, it doesn't need to be this rigid, upright stance. Find the right moment for confrontation and deliver with sensitivity. Stop blaming others and look to yourself. Own your actions. Be able to yield to others. Let go of the need to be the top dog. Okay. Now, here are some tips. How to get along with an 8. Remember, I have a very soft, sensitive interior. So I forget what the cupcake was at the very first video that we had about all the different cupcakes. But I think it did say that it had a soft center.
No, I thought he said like, it could be better, or I've had better, I think.
Oh, that's right, he said I have that.
I've had better.
But when he described the cupcake at the beginning, he said it's
Yeah.
something,
Oh,
I think,
okay.
with a soft center. And that's hard to see, you know, it takes, each one of us has to be strong enough to withstand the energy or the blast to realize that that's not the whole story. You know, there's a lot of bluster there. What's really in the center? And this is really getting back to the whole purpose of the Enneagram, which is for us to get in touch with our essence, rather than, you know, all of this stuff. I mean, you can say that all of this is like dealing with the waves on top of the ocean. And it's important that we get to identify what these waves look like and how they can behave and all of that. But ultimately, we're going to make a much deeper dive past all of that to where we have all of this energy in common, our essence. When we have all of the qualities of every single, the best qualities, you know, the innocence, the peace, the wisdom, the joy, the enthusiasm, the perfection, all of that is our essence. And so we're learning not to be blinded by this. In the same way that we get blinded by the 8's presentation, we get blinded by our own presentation. I saw someone, well, it was again a Unity Ministers discussion group. This is so funny to me. I mean, I decided to do this Enneagram last year, and then all of a sudden it's everywhere, like Twin Cities is doing it. And then suddenly there's a discussion this week in the Unity Ministers Facebook page. And someone said, the Enneagram is not about putting you in a box. It's helping you to see the box that you've been living in for the last X number of years. And I thought that was really well said.
Yes.
You know, we're not putting ourselves or other people in a box. We're recognizing the boxes that we're in, and how can I get out of this box, and how can I learn to help other people to get out of the box, and how can we relate better, to realize that actually there's no box. That's a construct, it's conditioning, and that we're undoing all of that, we're recognizing the shadow, and then we're discovering the soft center, and it's actually not soft, it's expansive, it's infinite, it's eternal, it's powerful. That's what this journey with the Enneagram is really all about. Okay, to get along with the 8. Stand strong in conflict, don't cower to me. Because 8s have no respect for someone who cowers. But just remember that if you choose to hit, you will get hit back, and probably twice as hard. Because they are not going to have you win the fight. So that's not the strategy of hitting, but it is a strategy of standing up for yourself. Stand in your own power. Then they'll respect you. Don't waffle or whine. Don't flake on them. Don't lie. I can sense deceit from a mile away. Don't air our dirty laundry or betray my trust. Because this would be a red rag to a bull. This is really pushing buttons. Have my back and protect me as I would you. Injustice drives me nuts. Show me your integrity. When I'm vulnerable, remind me it's not weak. My anger isn't as big a deal to me as it is to you. And that's the thing around 8s. If you have a conversation with an 8, if you can have that open, honest conversation, they have no idea what you're talking about almost. It's like, I only, I was only at a 9 on the Richter scale. What are you on about? Why are you so bent out of shape about that? Because they live in this intense energy. And if you're a very quiet, reserved, introverted person, this is going to feel like a furnace just opened the door and blasted you. But they're living at that frequency the whole time, so it's like it doesn't mean anything to them. So you have to really spell it out for them, so that they will begin to sense that they're coming across that strongly. Help me to feel in control, expect to be tested. So have you ever worked for an 8? Anybody here work for an 8? It wasn't me.
No.
Yeah, I think my practice over the years with CEOs, the 8s were the hardest to confront who they were unless the board or the team as a whole said, this isn't working. That was the only way you could begin to get their attention.
Oh, that's good information.
So working, and I'm sure many of you in the business community have experienced this, is that when you have an 8, just what Jerry said, they don't listen, they can't perceive what you're talking about. So there has to be an inordinate superpower, like the board, or their whole team giving feedback to say, this is not working. So there has to be a very strong stance for them to begin to be reflective. It's very hard for them to be reflective. The only thing that I found was that working with a coach, a therapist, was generally had no place in them until they were threatened about their position. That was the big challenge.
Right. So when the supervisory role or person doesn't do their job, just saying, what happens then? Are you going to say something?
Well, I worked with several 8s over the years, and mostly in corporations and in smaller businesses. And inevitably, they had sharp elbows, and they were effective. But I was trying to classify them with these different wings and so forth as you were speaking. And there's no question that they get there and stay there on top. And I'm talking CEOs and so forth. And with people with a lot of folks under them, and a lot of talented people under them. But I've never known one that didn't have what I call sharp elbows. I've known some good achievers, and I've known a couple of, one in particular that blew his head off. So I wished I'd had this course back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
Jack
you.
Welch yesterday, Dr.
Right, CEO.
Yeah. So CEO of GE, one of the things that was clear with him is that he established that you had to absolutely have effectiveness and efficiency in an organization. And if that meant getting rid of the bottom 10th of the population every year in your company, then you had to get rid of them. And so there was no kind of sensitivity, and that's what I've seen in a lot of the 8s within organizations.
Okay. And obviously that's been your background working with companies and people in these type of positions. Mary?
We weren't in business, we were in education. And we had a superintendent who was very definitely a strong -8. And we went on strike. And we won.
Good for you. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a small business, well, I mean, a church, whatever, small grouping, and if you've got an 8 for a boss, like, you probably don't have You don't have a union, you don't have, they're your supervisor, they're your personnel director or whatever. It can be tough because what will probably happen is you'll probably give up. You'll probably say, I don't want to be around this person anymore, because the chances of them changing or listening can be pretty slim. But again, I do want to just go back to my friend who, as I said, was a medical social worker, worked in a hospital, and they were constructing a whole new hospital. This was down in LA, and she became the hospital's representative on some committee, with the construction people and the architects and all of that. And she had this incredible influence on what they built and how they built it, how it looked, how it interacted for the patients who would go there. She did this amazing job. So she could use that power, for good, and really learned. I mean, she was definitely someone who evolved and integrated because she learned to get along with people. But, as you said, in a crunch situation, if needed, she had sharp elbows. And, I saw her take on the CFO and just like flatten him, basically, and yeah, anyway.
Something that you said reminded me that 8s are actually part of the body types. And so that understanding about an environment and how it's going to work and that kind of thing is really important. I'm a 9, and I have that, sometimes I'm overwhelmed by that sensation, that goes into everything. I mean, all I am is about feeling. But 8s have that too, because they're also that gut person.
Right, and I hadn't talked about that just, in passing again, to say that the 1s, the 9s, and the 8s are the body type or the gut type. And for the 8s, it's embodying the body. It's being in the body with a lot of expressive energy. Like the 9s, it's sort of like almost withdrawing into a cave and keeping everything low down, not much energy. And then the 1 is trying to control the energy and manage it. So they are in the intuitive part of the Enneagram, the 1s, the 9s, and the 8s. But as I always said, it doesn't mean that they use that. They can be out of touch with their intuition too. But if they are in touch with their intuition, you may have heard someone say, I have a gut feeling about that. And that's, I know, because I have a gut feeling. That's the 8. Okay, where did I stop? Did we get through the assets? No, I don't think so. So, getting along at work. Here are some of the assets. They're clear, they're straight shooting leadership. So they get to the point, it brings a place to life. So again, if it's like a bull in a china shop, sort of, it's like, there's going to be a lot of energy in the office. There's going to be a lot of energy, at the team meeting. It's not going to be copacetic. Can be very generous, effusive, able to see the big picture, can be a visionary. Again, we've mentioned, and we'll get into that in a minute, the various historical figures who were visionary, can confront obstacles and engage roadblocks. So again, here's a great quality. They have so much energy to really, be the dynamite that blows the rock out of the way so that things can move forward. They take care of and will stand up for their own. The challenging for them is to lean into interdependence. As I said, they're more interested in their opinion than not really necessarily interested in the other opinions around them. They need to learn to ask for support when they need it. Learn to negotiate. Drop the threats and the ultimatums. So, you know, maybe they're very quick to sue people. They contain anger and rage and impatient reactions. That's a challenge for them. They can be very sparky. Accept different work and communication styles. So again, for them, it's this cut and thrust, and it's very clear, and it's very powerful, and it's kind of dominating and all that. So for them to learn that there are other ways to communicate, you know, and you can be more effective. Let's see, was this the tips? That was the tips. Okay, subtypes. I'm going to go to this other book for the subtypes. Okay, so we've talked about, you know, the various influences that give you a different flavor for a particular type, and the subtypes are where we see really distinct differences.
Can you tell us what book that is?
It's called the Enneagram Systems 27 Personality Subtypes. It's by Beatrice
Oh,
Chestnut.
it's these. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's the one.
So again, there are three subtypes. There's self-preservation, social, sexual, one-on-one. So the first subtype, the self-preservation, which, you know, already the 8 is set up as a type for self-preservation. It's about, I'm vulnerable, I want safety, I'm going to defend myself. The first subtype for self-preservation is satisfaction. That's what they're trying to get. The self-preservation 8 expresses lust through a strong need to get what's theirs. Like this, I deserve this. This is mine, and I'm going to get it. To obtain what they need for survival. They tend to feel omnipotent, able to satisfy and meet any need. So again, it's not like the 2 that is really like wanting all of you to love me kind of energy. No, the 8 is going to be the one to get what it wants, or he or she wants. They're not going to be depending on someone else. The title given to this type is satisfaction. This person has a strong desire for the timely satisfaction of material needs and an intolerance of frustration. Self-preservation 8s go after what they need without talking about it very much. With a person of this subtype, there is no nonsense, no worries, no pretenses, and no wordplay. So again, it's just go get it. There's a sense that this person feels compelled to go for what they want in a strong and direct way without any fuss or explanations. They don't feel the need to justify themselves. I'm just going to do it. This character has a hard time being patient when it comes to not getting immediate satisfaction related to their needs and desires. This is a little bit like the 1-to-1-1 type, who also expresses the sense that he has to get what he wants.